Am I looking at you? Am I looking beyond the camera? Okay. Okay.
It's a conversation between us. Cool. It's just recorded by accident.
Setup is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Just look at me. Yes.
Fair. Okay.
So when you feel you can start.
I need to see my posture because I don't know. Like this.
But I feel like I'll progressively just go like this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna
like
remember.
For 2 seconds, I'm like,
Margo, remember.
Yes.
And you can remember us as well, Daniel.
Yes.
Okay. Let us know when we can start.
You can start.
It's already recording. Yeah, thank you.
This is
He's
gonna be
always
fun.
like this.
And go.
You didn't bring the clash thing, pop.
It's just gonna have to go like.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, we are ready.
You're like, come on.
Yeah, just start. I have things to do.
Nhamy. Podcast. Nem sei.
This is going to be funny. Margo, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Again.
I love it here.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine.
Awesome.
Fine. Thank you.
Cool.
So, you are a girl from Boston,
Yes, I am.
living in Portugal.
I am.
How you ended up here?
That's a great question. How much time do we have?
30, 40 minutes.
Okay,
But I have
give
more
you...
questions, so you need to...
Fair. I'll give you the long and short of it. So I came to Portugal on holiday in 2018, and I was on my way to Mozambique and had a stopover here for like 2 to 3 days. And I was like, this is such a cool city. I was just really captured by the food, the vibe, the architecture, the history, of course. And I sort of bookmarked it in my mind and said, you have to come back here at some point in the future. And so with COVID, just sort of putting a halt on a lot of things as it pertained to travel, that's really kind of when I started thinking, okay, maybe this might be an opportunity to relocate to Europe, which was a goal of mine since I was like a teenager. I just wanted to sort of have that writer's life in Europe, much like how James Baldwin did and Richard Wright during the sort of Renaissance era. And so that always really appealed to me.
Okay. But you wanted to go to Paris? Or?
Yeah, the goal was to actually go to Paris. I love my life here in Lisbon. Let me just sort of state that as a fact. But yeah, I always have had a fondness for Paris, and I try to travel there often. But yeah, Lisbon really captured me, and that's really 2020 was when I decided, okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to apply to move here. So I did.
So everyone was staying at home, and you were just, I'm going to move to...
Packing my bags, and I was like, I got to get out of here. I think initially my family and friends obviously were shocked. They were like, who is in Portugal? I was like, nobody. But I don't know, I think just being a very curious person, I was always like, okay, I know I'm going to meet incredible people. Didn't know who they were going to be, of course, but just always had this sort of sense of like, there's so much more beyond Boston, and I absolutely love, having grown up in Boston and the education that I, got there, but yeah, the world is just so much bigger than where I grew up, and so I just always knew that in the back of my mind, and Lisbon just happened to be a city that welcomed me.
So when you arrived?
I arrived in October of 2020.
Okay.
So the first Sunday? Yeah, it was a holiday.
Alone?
Alone.
Okay.
I'm alone. Some people say I'm brave. I don't know. A little crazy, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit crazy, I must say. But how you manage your first days here? You had
initially,
an
yeah.
you
So
rented something?
with the whole visa process, of course, I went through the State Department's website, also checking the Portuguese consulate's website because we have a consulate in Boston, and just did a lot of Google searching, did some research, pretty much did all the research on my own. And then the biggest challenge was really getting access to a lot of the office buildings because everything was like on full shutdown in Boston. So you really had to go to these spaces with an appointment ready. And so what I couldn't do on my own, then I would sort of like research other sort of online resources. There were a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of like Reddit forums online that I found really beneficial. And two, I think for me, I just had this urgency that I was like, all right, I need to really not be in Boston for a while. And I think it took a while for my family and friends to understand like, why? Like no one's pushing you to leave. Like, what is this, you know? And I said, I'll come back for the holidays. And I did that December. But I don't know, even with the sort of homesickness and just transitioning here and, you know, finding, you know, my apartment and then eventually like trying to connect with locals and other Americans, you know, I just was like open to the experience. There were moments where I was just like, maybe I should move back to Boston. I'm so lonely. Because COVID was really challenging. I mean, exactly. I consider myself an introvert and I do love my own company and just being at home and nesting, but it was challenging. It was really, really challenging, and I didn't want to give up so soon. So I will say that's what kept me here longer, was that I wanted to experience this space without COVID sort of being this like shadow over the whole experience. So, yeah.
And you came here as a food writer?
Yes. So by trade, I was a accountant, and so I worked for a few mutual fund companies in Boston. That was sort of my corporate life for 13 years. And then I moonlighted as a food writer. So my degree's in English and professional writing. I always thought that I would become an English teacher. But, you know, things happen, and found myself working in the corporate space, the accounting space. And then when I had an opportunity to freelance, I started pitching to publications like Cuisine Noir. And that's kind of where things
still working.
Exactly. So it's been 5 years, which is like so crazy to think. But yeah.
And here you had the opportunity to work for the Time Out, right?
Yeah, that came as a surprise to me. I think for me, it was just like focusing on putting out stories that I'm proud of, whether that was for Cuisine Noir or Edible Boston or Uncultured, which is another publication that I write for. So it was just for me like wonderful confirmation that like you're doing solid work in telling people's stories. And so I had an opportunity to freelance for Time Out Portugal with their English vertical for
and doing what
career.
You do actually.
Yeah. So it's very serendipitous, but also I'll say affirming to know that like, oh, people are reading your work and they want to work with you, and it's been a really lovely feeling.
That's really cool. And when you started to think about writing about food?
Oh boy, I would say when I was a teenager. I was very much a bookworm. I loved just sort of being in my room, reading, and just experiencing new worlds. And being the middle child, I was always just very shy. And being able to like lose myself in a book or in a story really like captivated me. And I wanted to be able to command language in the way that my favorite writers write, like whether that's James Baldwin or Toni Morrison or Dr. Jessica B. Harris, who is one of like my mentors in my mind. She's just such an okay. She's a historian, a culinary historian.
Okay.
And she's written for Essence and just a wealth of other publications. And she's actually the woman who wrote High on the Hog, which is a culinary cookbook around the African diaspora and then also the African American food landscape. And for me, I just really love how she uses sociology and just like history and sort of blends those worlds together through her work.
We are going to write her.
Yeah, highly recommend it. She has a memoir called My Soul Looks Back. And for me, like, I think I read it over and over during COVID because that kind of gave me momentum and just a way to escape the heaviness of, you know, experiencing COVID solo. But yeah. Writing just has always been a part of like writing and reading, just always been a part of my world, and always wanted to be able to say like, hey, I'm a food writer and this is what I do full time, and you know, it's still sort of surprises me, like, wow, I actually accomplished this goal, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. I'm missing the world because I'm
No worries.
really mesmerized by your history because
Thank you.
actually someone which is coming from, how many hours do we have from Boston until Lisbon? It's like
5 or
13?
6 hours,
Ah,
but from
okay.
California to Lisbon, it's about 13 hours. So it's like flying to Japan.
Exactly. I mean, how in the hell I don't know if I can say how in the hell in the podcast, but okay. How do you manage, like, yeah, someday I'm going to just start my life here. I don't know the language. I don't know anyone.
Sure.
I don't have any idea how is life here, but I'm going to try.
Why
So,
not?
Yeah, I'm thinking on your family actually, saying, oh my God, what happened
They were
to my shiny
scratching
girl,
their
which
heads.
was closed at her room, reading some books, and now suddenly she wants like to go to the other side of the world,
Pretty much.
being a food writer.
They were like, are you well?
Exactly.
I don't know. I think for me, I just was like, I'll reassure them, like, I will come back. You know, this is not a permanent thing. So I kind of had to say that initially, just to kind of put them at ease. But they were still sort of scratching their heads, like, you don't speak the language.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
what exactly are you going to do there?
Even though
You know?
here in Portugal you have a very good level of
Everyone
English
speaks
speaking.
English.
Yeah,
I was, pleasantly
So-
surprised. But I don't know. I think for me, like I said, there was this curiosity to meet new people, to experience something different, and I think the fear was not as large for me. Yeah. I'll say
How
that.
do you switch from the person that it's really shy and didn't want like to leave your room,
Sure.
to someone that has actually to meet people in order to get noticed?
For sure. That's a great question. I will say practice, and also just having a general love of people, and again, going back to that curiosity. I've just always been like open to learning about different cultures, and having grown up in a multilingual household. My parents are from Haiti. I find that like Haitian people, or just people in general from the Caribbean, like they're really amazing storytellers, and I love language, and so being able to find my like books that really captivated me and motivated me to say, okay, I want to be able to master writing this way. I want to be able to world build for a reader and have them understand an emotion or whatever. And I think that with my like love of food, was able to just create other opportunities for me, and then also kind of keep me busy as a shy person, and I, didn't have to like chat people up too much aside from spending time with my siblings, But yeah, I'd say writing and just having that love for food and being curious about translating like my lived experience to other people, because I think we all have really interesting stories to share.
Tell me something. Of course, besides the fact that you are a black girl,
Yes.
writing for, I think that Cuisine Noire is focused on the black African descendant gastronomy.
Exactly.
So, how you ended up in being, I know how and why, but just tell to the people that are listening or seeing us, what inspired you to be the person that really writes about black culture, black cuisine, African cuisine, and trying to take the African cuisine to the next level?
That's such a great question. I would say for me, like narrative is so important, and then being able to like have access to stories and archives of people that look like you and me who have done amazing things, because I didn't grow up like going to school. I went to school, but like I didn't grow up with those stories. Obviously, like I would watch like the public broadcasting station PBS, and they had amazing like food channels like Jacques Pépin and Julia Childs, and those names are very popular, right? But I wanted to be able to see people that look like me that were top chefs and, came from really unique backgrounds. And I just always wanted to be able to say like, wow, that person looks like me, and perhaps one day I can maybe become a top chef or become a journalist, what have you. And so being able to write our stories became paramount for me. Like that was my sort of contribution to
for the future.
Yeah,
for your
yeah,
siblings.
Absolutely. And I think part of that is tied to legacy. For me, that's just always been a word that's super important. And being the daughter of immigrants, oftentimes we don't get a chance to tell our stories, and people tend to maybe have different views on someone who maybe comes from the Caribbean or comes from a developed, a developing nation, something like this. And so being able to have that responsibility, right, of sharing someone's story, for me is very important.
Yeah. Because you were born in Boston,
in Miami, and then grew up in Boston.
Okay, but your parents are from
Haiti. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And did you manage to go there?
Yeah, I went there once, many moons ago, before the earthquake, and it was for a family wedding, and it was really wonderful. I had never been there before, and it was just awesome to be with my family and aunts and uncles who I had never met before, and to really see the beauty of the island.
Do you ever thought in writing a book?
Yes, all the time. Absolutely.
You already have one.
Yes, I have a cookbook and a quick digital guide to Lisbon. So those two projects sort of came about just organically. Again, to go back to COVID, we were all in our homes making sourdough bread and all sorts of things.
And you were writing your book.
And I was writing really from the suggestion of a few friends. So I would cook a lot of recipes from my childhood, and that sort of was a bit nostalgic for me as I was a bit homesick. And I always had leftovers, and so I'd bring the few friends that I had and say like, hey, come over, or bring your Tupperware. And after a while, they were like, you should write a book. And I was like, really? Like right now? And so really from their encouragement and just all the time that I had during quarantine, I decided to then start recording myself and writing down the recipes and really thinking about how I wanted the book to be, translated to my audience and to my family and friends. And because I love hosting, my mom was always cooking and hosting friends and family. I wanted to be able to give people a piece of that. I love music, and so it was paramount that I had a playlist that accompanied the recipes. There's 10 recipes from different cultures, including my culture, Haitian culture. And I wanted it to sort of feel like you were in my home, and I'd have little anecdotes as to why this recipe was inspired to be in the book. So there's a pasta dish, there's the soup jamu, which is Haiti's national dish that we tend to have on January 1st, which is independence for Haiti. And so, I just wanted it to kind of be a way to understand where I'm coming from and the things that I really enjoy, and essentially sharing a bit of my world with my readers.
People, if they want to buy your book, they can come to your website.
You can get it from Gumroad, or if you go to the link in my Instagram bio, all of my books are listed there.
It's a digital one.
Digital, yeah. So it's a digital download.
So when we will have a physical one from you?
That's a great question. I mean, I think my next project, I would love for it to be a physical book, and perhaps maybe instead of doing self-publishing, which is what I did for my first two books.
It's very difficult to have a book published, right?
It's challenging. It's not impossible. But I'd love,
impossible.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to have a publisher. So if any publishers are out there,
yeah,
let me know.
Let me know if
get into my DMs.
Yes, exactly.
But that would be, for sure, the next project that I'd love to work on is maybe a memoir or a culinary memoir discussing my life here, the move, and just all the incredible people that I've had a chance to meet.
You were talking a few minutes ago. You were saying that you really like to host.
Yes.
And I think that you have some project in hosting events, right?
Yeah,
so can you please talk us a little bit about it?
Sure. So in addition to my food writing, I also do pop-up dinners, and that again came about super organically. A really good friend of mine has a couple of restaurants in the city, and I was always going to his bar and just hanging out, and he had just opened up a spot in Alfama, and he was like, oh, I have this really cool concept and I want to sort of have a rotating schedule of chefs coming in. And then I was there with a friend, and she was like, oh, maybe Margo can like have a Haitian dinner at your restaurant. And he's like, oh, okay, that would be really cool. And he's not familiar with Haitian food, so we went into this huge conversation about, the typical dishes and what are some popular spirits that are commonly, enjoyed in Haiti. And then he was like, okay, well, send me the ingredients list, send me the different recipes that you would like to cook, and then we will pick a day. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like excited, but also like nervous, like, yeah, oh, you want me to show up and cook? This is crazy. But I think it was important for me to challenge myself in that way, because I do love to host, I love to cook, and I also love sharing my culture with others. And I think being here solo for a couple years, I was always yearning to meet other people from the Haitian diaspora, and I'm grateful that I have a couple friends here now, and they came to the dinner, and so it's been a really nice journey to collaborate with local Portuguese restaurateurs and chefs, and have their trust and confidence to let me cook in their kitchen. Like, it's awesome. And I always tell people, like, never self-reject. Like, if there's an idea that you want to pursue, like, just ask the person that you admire or whatever, because if you don't, the answer will always be no.
Exactly.
So this move has been sort of...
no is always guaranteed.
Exactly.
Guaranteed.
And so the worst is they say no, and then you find somebody else to maybe pitch to.
Actually, it was because of that we are here today at Manja, because you
exactly.
asked to Paulo if
right.
Thank you, Paulo. Exactly. Thank you, Paulo. If we could record here.
Yeah, and this is like the perfect space. We're talking about food, and you're a foodie in your own right, and so I think it just makes sense that we're here.
To be here, exactly.
Yeah.
Moving on to the representativeness. How do you see the culture, the African culture in Portugal?
Okay.
Talking about the gastronomy.
Okay. That's a heavy question. Let me think so I can answer properly.
Have only easy ones. Let's get deeper.
Oh dear. Okay. No, this is good. I will say it's super rich. There's just so much talent, really, not just obviously in the food space, but across the board. But being able to meet some awesome wine producers and somms and chefs and pastry chefs here who are a part of the African diaspora here has been really awesome. There's just a wealth of stories to share, and I think that is what excites me the most, is to be able to explore that, meeting the other really talented people that you've introduced me to. So I'm always like, oh my goodness, I'm making a mental note. I need to interview this person, or I need to pitch them to this magazine, because there's just so much talent here. Exactly.
I say sometimes that I'm like the lightning Nokia because I connect people.
Yeah, you do.
You are also connecting.
Yeah, so I think for me, like, it's just been super awesome because coming from Boston, we have a pretty large Cape Verdean community. But I don't think I'd ever met an Angolan person, or like I met maybe a few people from Mozambique, but never from, was it Sao Tome and Príncipe or Guinea-Bissau? Like, being here, there's just been this really amazing cross-section of people from the African diaspora, and so I think that has lended itself to just the richness of the gastronomy here in Portugal. And for me, I just see like so many stories that need to be told. So it's exciting, it's rich. There's so many narratives that have yet to be written about and explored. I mean, I think it's obviously happening with the podcast that you've just launched. But yeah, there's always more work to do.
Yeah, a lot of,
that is sort of what I would say. There's so much more
work to do, I must say. Because I mean, I share the same thought we have a lot of talented people that don't have. People don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
So, as we're saying, that's the reason why this podcast was created, is
Precisely.
to bring these stories to the people.
Precisely.
Hoping that everyone is listening to the podcast. But
Yes.
actually, this is one of my goals, is to
Awesome.
bring these stories, bring these people to get noticed, because they are really talented and they don't have the opportunity to show up.
For sure.
basically.
For sure. So.
Do you have any favorite restaurant?
Ooh, this is hard. There's so many good ones.
I think that it's a really difficult question for someone that
Yeah.
writes about food.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say it's really hard to have a bad meal in Portugal. Like, whether it's a tasca or just like a proper wine bar or what have you, like, there's just a wealth of amazing places. I will say some of the places that I tend to go back to, that I just really love the menu, I love the team, I love the staff. A Viagem nas Horas, which is in Arroios, and it's owned by Ricardo Maneira.
One of
Yes,
my guests.
yes. Great
Yes.
episode. Yeah, I would say I go there often, so I always love to recommend folks go there and support. Excellent music, wonderful, well thought out wine list, and a really lovely menu.
Now that I'm thinking, the first time that I went to a Viagem das Horas, it was with you.
Yes.
You exactly. Now that thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
You know,
because-
I try.
Yeah, thank you.
But no, it's just such a wonderful place, and there's so many other places. There's So What in Santos. It's a jazz club, and they always have really excellent live music, and it's just such a beautifully decorated space. I don't want to give away all the gems, but you know, I'd say those two are really lovely for sort of traditional Portuguese food. Really like Antiga Camponesa in Barrio Alto, I believe, and André Magalhães is running behind that project. What else? I love Waipi. I think that's in Santo Charlapa. It's run by Gregory and Leila, and it's a Brazilian spot. It's like a grocery store / cafe restaurant, and they really do wonderful like indigenous ingredients, and they have a really solid menu. But yeah.
And in Porto, do you have some?
Yeah, there's some really great places in Porto. Mota. I'm not pronouncing it properly, but really excellent spot in
I'm
downtown.
gonna Google it.
I
and
will
then
send you
confirm
all the
with you.
links.
Yeah, thank
I will
you.
send you
and
all the
I will
links.
put it in the episode.
And then a little farther beyond Porto, in Lourinhã, there's a really fantastic restaurant that overlooks the beach. It's called Alta Restaurant, and it's run by a family. Julie Martelheira is the head chef, and she runs it with her mom, Joanna, and her sister, Jenny. And they've been around for 2 years now. And it's just really lovely seasonal food, and the area, Lourinhã, is just so beautiful. Like, you get a view of the ocean, and it's just sort of a sleepy town, but really, really quaint.
So let me just tell you something. I'm shocked because you are able to remember all the names of the restaurants, plus the places, plus the chefs. I mean, how you can do that?
I like to eat, and I'm serious about eating, so you know.
Do you write the names in some like book,
no,
or do you
no.
have like
I
a
think
fantastic?
I do not
memory?
have a really good memory,
Okay, so
but
you
I
need to
try
explain.
to do as much research.
Okay.
So for me, like, again, if there's a story that I really want to pitch to a magazine editor, I really have to become well versed in the pitch, the angle. So with the Alta Restaurant piece, I had an opportunity to meet the head chef a few years ago, and at that point she was actually living in Canada. She's from Toronto, but her parents are from the Lourinhã Peniche area, and so they would spend their summers here when they were growing up. And I was like, this is such a cool like story, you know?
To tell, yeah.
And so I was like, well, good luck with like whatever you do. And then we met for like a little lunch, and then she just kind of got to work. She was traveling all over the country, spending some time between here and Toronto to kind of figure out, okay, is she going to do this? And then when she, finally opened the space, I was like, you did it. Like, I was just so proud of her, the drive and the ambition and just how committed she was. And so for me, like, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, you need to be interviewed. Like, somebody needs to hear your story. And I think for me, it's having that sort of initial curiosity that I'm like, I really want to tell this story. So I go all in. And I think that is part of the reason why. It's like, I have a tiny obsession.
You do your research.
A little bit.
Because I do my research as well, but my memory is like, I'm all over the places.
Fair.
You can be assured that if you're going to ask me something, I know it, but at the time you're going to ask it, I will not remember.
Fair. That does happen to me
and
often.
I will say, I don't remember the name. And then like 3 hours, 4 hours after, I will send you a message with the name. I'm that kind of people.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Tell me something. You are here, it will be 4 years.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Do you feel Lisbon as home now?
I do, actually. I will say, before I lived here, whenever I would travel outside of Boston, I was always just like so excited to leave Boston because we have very long winters. Last year I had an opportunity to live in Madrid for a month or so, and I could not wait to get back to Lisbon. Like, it was just unexpected, and I was like, wow, I think this is really like feeling like home. Yeah. And so that to me is really important.
And do you think that you're going to stay here for
That's a great question.
Or are you going to Paris like James Baldwin?
I mean, that would be nice. I think now that I live in Europe and going to France is super easy and you can always sort of find a cheap flight. I think Lisbon will continue to be my home base.
Do you prefer Lisbon or Porto?
Ooh, this is tough. I mean, oh my. I really love the food scene in Porto. I really, really love the food scene. Not that I don't love the food scene in Lisbon. I don't want to get in trouble.
Don't get in trouble.
I love both cities equally. There, I said it. Funny.
Tell me something. I think that we more or less covered all of my, how we call it? Checks.
Okay.
In my list. But I have here one that you need to really think about it, and I'm going to read it because I really want.
Okay.
Has someone passionate about global gastronomy? How do you believe cultural diversity enhances the culinary experience for both chefs and dinners?
That's a really great question. Okay.
It took me a while to get this.
I will take my time in responding. But
Yeah, exactly. You have.
Oh, can you repeat the question one more time?
As someone passionate about global gastronomy, how do you believe cultural diversity enhances the culinary experience?
Okay. I would say, for me, like whenever I go dining out with friends, whether it's a Portuguese restaurant or something completely different, I think it's super important to have some sort of initial interest beyond like, okay, we're gonna have a nice meal out. Being able to have access to Mozambican restaurants, being able to perhaps going to a Cape Verdean restaurant, like they have unique stories and histories. And for me, as a food writer, storyteller, it's so lovely to be able to see certain similarities from perhaps maybe my culture or what I grew up eating on the table with my family. Like we eat a lot of bacalhau in the Caribbean. We eat a lot of hot peppers, and so to be here and to enjoy a lot of the richness in the gastronomy here allows me to see correlations, but also how we are a lot similar than we are different. I think food is political, and so it's there's always something that you can discuss when it relates to food. And being able to be a food writer, but then also host dinners, I see how I'm able to change people's perspective on maybe Haiti or Haitian culture or the Haitian language, whereas maybe someone has never had an opportunity to meet someone from Haiti, right? And so now that I live here, I'm able to really take advantage of the diversity and the richness that's here. Like I'd never had food from Macau until I moved here. I never had food from Mozambique again until I moved here. So I think there's so much that's it could offer you when you do have an opportunity to dine at a really cool restaurant that has this like cultural infusion, right? So yeah, I'd say it's really important.
Yeah, because Lisbon is a very multicultural city, so you are able to see
truly this.
And people sometimes doesn't have this idea, but Lisbon, it's really very multicultural city.
Definitely is.
Yeah. It was a good answer, and you didn't take too long. So check.
Thank you.
So Margo, what you are going to do in 2025?
That's a great question. I have a few projects. I'd really love to get into maybe public speaking. I love connecting with individuals and sharing their stories beyond writing, of course. And I think, maybe I see myself doing more panels, being a moderator, these types of things. And
TED Talks.
Maybe that would be nice. I have not given that thought, but yeah, being able to like share my journey with others, my expertise. I really do love sharing just my journey with emerging writers and others who perhaps are thinking about taking the leap into freelance writing. And then I'll continue obviously my pop-up dinners. I'd love to expand that into maybe doing sponsored dinners with different brands here in Portugal and abroad. And then also just continuing to work with other creatives, whether that's collaborating on podcasts or just, maybe doing a dinner or something like this. So really not limiting myself to any of the projects that I sort of think up.
Just show up and do your magic.
I try.
That's really good. I was thinking something, you were talking and I was thinking that it could be my next question, but now I forgot.
It's okay.
You see?
It's okay.
I told you.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
I told you. But yeah, I don't remember, so let's just move on to the next question.
Fair.
And I will remember, I think.
Cool.
If your life were a menu,
Ooh, okay.
what will be the main dish, the dessert, and the starter?
That's a great question. Okay. I really love seafood, so the appetizer would probably be a mix of maybe oysters, some scallops. I love anchovies, so it would have to be something like this, but something fresh, something bright, something maybe citrusy. And then maybe the main. Wow, I love rice and I love pasta, so this is very hard. Wow, it was so hard. But I would say it would be a rice dish. In Haitian culture, we have this really lovely umami flavored rice called dili jonjon. And dili is rice, and jonjon is trumpet mushrooms. So they're like dehydrated and really infused with a lot of spices. And we tend to cook it with some coconut milk and other sort of spices. And it really infuses this like rich umami flavor. And as a kid, my mom would make this when we had parties. So for me, it was like, I knew something big and exciting was happening because my mom was making dili jonjon.
It's like the cachupa in Cape Verde, basically. When we had the cachupa,
it's something special.
Not the dish like cachupa, but when you have cachupa in the family, you know that something special was coming. Yeah. So
yeah, I'd probably have this, and then some sort of seafood situation, whether that's a grilled red snapper or fried even, and some sort of pickled onions. Like really, I love the salty, the fatty, the savory. I love to eat.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
I love to eat. And then dessert, I have a sweet tooth, so it would probably be maybe like a really nice, maybe rosé or espumante. There's amazing wines here in Portugal. So take your pick.
Do you have a favorite one?
Oh boy. I
The
recently
local.
got into like low intervention wines or pet nuts. So I love that effervescent sensation to that type of wine. I've really been enjoying Maria João Bato's line, Duckman. She has a really fantastic rosé called Romy. Amazing. And I discovered this at A Viagem das Horas. I feel like I sort of just drank through their entire stock of it last summer. But that, I'd say, is like a favorite in the summertime.
I remember the question. Now I'm going to ask you. Maybe we can just change when we were editing the episode, change the question. But you were talking about the bacalhau, that it's really used in IT. So which kind of recipes do you have there with bacalhau?
So typically if you're having like a breakfast dish, like my mom would sometimes make the salted cod, we would leave it in water to kind of, desalt it. And then she would make a tomato sauce and then boil like a sweet plantain or a green plantain. And you have that with avocado, a little bit of salt. For breakfast or snack. We have another dish, it's more of an appetizer. And I typically will make this when I'm actually doing my pop-up dinners here. So it's a marinated bacalhau with bell peppers and really great spices and herbs. And you have it like a bruschetta on a little piece of toast or cracker, but typically really good bread. And that's one of my favorite little appetizers and treats, I'd say.
Okay, really good bread. Which bread? Just which kind of bread?
Some sort of pan de agua or like a simple, like nice crusty baguette. Too good. Yeah. So yeah, those are the two I'd say are quite popular.
Thank you, Margo.
Thank you for having me.
It was very, very, very good.
Always
Thank you so
time.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I could just keep talking and talking and talking. Then he was like, stop talking.
Oh my gosh. I was writing when we were talking.
Nhamy. Podcast. Conexões.
Super awesome. Awesome. Can I get a photo of the two of you?
Grande Big Papa.